Sharon's future grandchildren and great-grandchildren will not get to meet the kind, generous, and selfless person that we all knew and loved. It's only through our memories that they will get a sense of who she was. Through our memories, we show the lives she touched and the generous contributions she made, not only in the Juneau community, but the countless nonprofits she supported in the country. In everything that Sharon did, she led by example. Sharon loved animals, and throughout her lifetime she rescued many. She encouraged and inspired the rest of us to follow her lead and adopt from rescue centers rather than purchasing from breeders. Sharon didn't complain. She embraced her friends and she embraced her life. She was grateful, positive, and generous with her time and provided support for anyone that needed her. When you hear and read about her life, you can see that she had much to be grateful for, and she gave as much as she received. Sharon lived in Alaska since 1964. Since age 10, Sharon had dedicated time to volunteering, and after retiring in 2000, she spent a significant portion of her life as a volunteer. She often said that she flunked retirement. True that. Before she lived in Alaska, Sharon lived in Wyoming, Newfoundland, Washington, D.C., Germany, England, New Mexico, Texas, North Carolina, and Georgia. Sharon is a 2-time cancer survivor, and of course she supported the American Cancer Society, twice as chair of the Relay for Life fundraising event in Juneau, and always as a supporting member. Sharon also served on the AARP committee to provide tax aid to seniors, and did so for several years, when in 2008 she learned the tax aid program was being taken out of Juneau due to lack of participation. Sharon formed a team and led the program, with over 100 seniors participating each year. The 2 examples I have listed above come from a long list of volunteer positions for Alaska that Sharon has held. Suffice it to say that there is not one year in Sharon's life that she has not served as a volunteer for Alaska in some capacity or another. As examples, although her only child spent only 5 years in Boy Scouts, she continued as a volunteer another 12 years. She was a Girl Scout leader for 3 years, has raised funds for nonprofits through Epsilon Sigma Alpha for 20-plus years at both the local and state level, has been the March of Dimes district coordinator, and a participant in too many fundraisers to name. She's been a coach, umpire, scorekeeper, volunteer stagehand, costume maker, and a pie maker for Rotary fundraisers. She has even played Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny to raise funds for local nonprofits throughout the years. Sharon is someone who is happy to be asked to serve. After her second bout with cancer in 2013, Sharon went to work part-time to manage a program that is close to her heart, the Backpack Program for Kids. The program actually started in 2015 with a small grant for a local church in the Douglas community. Through Sharon's passion and leadership, it grew, and at the time of her death, the programming fed nearly 500 kids. Eleanor Oidna remembered that Sharon said she had hoped for a large family. I often told her that she certainly got her wish. She not only coordinated the program, she did fundraising, grant writing, and the shopping and cooking to keep the program going and growing. Sharon once told her friend Eleanor that volunteer work was something she felt she was born to do. She was grateful every day that she was in a position to be able to. A message from Linda. I knew Sharon from the office I worked at for 21 years. I knew she was always helping others, making hats for kids in need, and helping at the lunch program. She was always special to me. A message from Lisa Yates. I worked with Sharon for many years back in the 1980s. She was my boss for a good portion of those 6 years. She not only was my boss and mentor, but a person that became my friend, and later we happened to become reacquainted as family. She was, as you probably know, a good cook, baker. She had an awesome sense of humor, and I remember laughing a lot through our work days. She is greatly missed. A message from Peter Nakamura. Sharon was always available to meet the challenge in the office or after work. She always had a smile on her face and always had the answers as my admin assistant when I served as the director of public health for Alaska. As the assistant to my wife, she helped me with the department Halloween costume party, or in keeping our salmon fresh every year when my 4 brothers joined me each year to fish with my wife and I. She was a great neighbor in the valley and always made space in her basement freezer for the fish. Lois and I were fortunate to have her as a wonderful friend. My great sorrow for the loss in a colleague and friend. Incidentally, we won the department costume party 4 times in a row and filled the freezer every year. A message from Janet Coffin. I first met Sharon in the fall of 2016 at a Wednesday ladies' luncheon at the Utter Culture in Juneau, Alaska. Sharon introduced me to many of the ladies and invited me to participate when I was able to join. It has been fun, and many of the ladies join when they are able. I then invited Sharon to play bunco once per month at rotating homes. The hostess provides a dish to share for the potluck, beverage, utensils, and plates. Sharon always made something most people would enjoy. Sharon was also, during summer months, providing lunches for children at a church in Douglas. Sharon also prepared bags of groceries for weekends for high school teenagers. Many times, if I was in Costco or Fred Meyer, Sharon would be in there shopping with funds provided by grant money. Sharon was a very busy lady, always with a bag of yarn for knitting hats or crocheting. In June 2018, Sharon treated me to see a show at the Perseverance Theater entitled Steel Magnolias. In December 2019, I asked Sharon if she would like to attend the U.S. Coast Chief Petty Officer Senior Holiday Dinner, along with our other friend, Kathy Painter. We had a good time and even had a holiday picture taken. In December 2017, I helped Sharon with a fundraiser, a pancake feed, at Thunder Mountain High School. Several times, I held a tea party at my home with finger sandwiches, and most ladies brought a teapot. Sharon provided transportation to the Juneau airport when my husband and I would travel to Seattle. Sharon was a generous woman and will be greatly missed. May she rest in peace. From Kathy Painter. I have known Sharon from playing bunco with her over the last 3 to 4 years. She was such a wonderful delight to have and fun to be around. This past year, I joined her and other ladies at the ladies' luncheon. We met at 1 p.m. on Wednesdays at different restaurants. Once again, it was so fun to have those memories of her. She also joined Janet Coffin and me last December 2019 at the Coast Guard Christmas party. I also met her and Vivian for a dinner at a small restaurant by the hospital before going to a concert at Centennial Hall a few years ago. Last Christmas at one of our luncheons at a restaurant, she gave us all some Christmas mugs. I will always remember her when I look at that mug. She will be greatly missed. I am so blessed to have known her the last few years. A message from Jack Marshall. I worked with Sharon, and she and I went to the same church. I live 5 houses up the street from her, and having lived on Turn Street for 36 years, I got to know her well. As her home teacher from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I spent a lot of time at her home. She had an independent spirit and was kind and loving to all. She loved her dogs. She volunteered at the election poll each year. I will miss her greatly. A message from Laura Lundberg, Sharon's ESA sorority sister. Sharon was truly dedicated to helping others. I've never met someone so caring of everyone around her, including many, many people she did not know. One moment of her time made a positive difference for someone, and all the moments of her time made a positive difference for everyone. I remember most that Sharon would likely be knitting a cap, scarf, or socks while volunteering her time at one philanthropic event or another, and carrying on a conversation with a smile on her face. Super multitasker. Sharon was 100% a true humanitarian, and we are all better people for knowing and loving her. A message from Margie Mackey and her Epsilon Sigma Alpha sisters. Sharon always had her yarn with her. Always ready to help with Santa pictures, from decorating, pictures, printing, and even filling in for Santa. Ready to put on the Easter Bunny suit to make children happy and listen to them giggle. Making pies to sell at the mall, cookies for the Pioneer Home senior proms, and a few times taking pictures at the prom. Helping young high school girls with personal items. Collecting food for children. Sharon was always ready to help and fill in as needed. Sharon was on the ESA board from our chapter and the state president. Her theme was dream catchers. If Sharon wasn't with us, she was wishing she could be. Sharon was loved and cherished by all of her ESA sisters. She will be greatly missed. Love you, Sharon, and thank you for being an incredible, magnificent, loving friend. A message from Mary. I was very proud to have known Sharon and to have her as a friend. She symbolized all the goodness that life had to offer. I first met Sharon at a family gathering about 7 years ago, not knowing that she would also become part of my workplace life. Sharon had a passion for helping people, and especially children. Each week, she would bring bags of non-perishable food to my workplace to be distributed to the family of students who oftentimes would not have enough food in their homes on the weekends. Although not identified by name, they became Sharon's kids, and youngsters would look forward to the Friday food bag. As the weather turned cooler, she would bring packages of socks and gloves, and they were given out as well. Oftentimes, I would encounter her shopping in a local store, and she would say she was shopping for the kids. I really believe she was trying to feed the less fortunate, one person at a time, and although she is no longer with us, her legacy continues. A message from Marianne Vaughn. I think Sharon's future grandchildren should know what a great person she was. I first met Sharon through Boy Scouts, where her son Ken and my son Nate were active. Later, Sharon and I participated in craft sessions, knitting, and quilting events. It seems she was always doing for others. When she made things, they were donated. My later memories of Sharon were seeing her at Costco, pushing a huge Costco floor cart filled with food items for church outreach for children's lunches. I will remember Sharon as a kind, generous, gracious lady. She loved her son Ken generously, with patience and kindness. A message from Melissa Dale, school counselor, Juneau Community Charter School. I believe I only met Sharon once, and it was during the shutdown last spring. I was waiting to meet her to pick up weekend food bags for families in need. She pulled up with more than one school's bags, having already delivered to multiple stops. Sharon knew who got what. There was a clear system she had established. Sharon was the backbone of this program. That is very clear as a fellow counselor who is trying to help piece it back together again this year. Sharon obviously had a huge heart and love of service to her community. She helped provide much-needed food over the weekend to a huge number of families. I know that when I delivered my food bags, I was so thankful to be bringing them something they truly needed, and it was the one time I saw many of those students during the shutdown. I truly appreciate all that she did, and I'm very sorry she has passed. She has left a hole in this community that is larger than many will really know.
When I first met Sharon, I wasn't sure if we could be friends. She was, after all, the new stepmother. Things started off a little rough. I didn't trust her, and I was maybe a little mouthy. She didn't suffer fools and wasn't prepared to cut me any slack. She prepared strange gourmet dishes. She wanted me to eat things like clam and fish, and she wanted me to behave like a lady, setting the table formally, using utensils properly, washing my face and hands. To 9-year-old me, it all seemed a little much to ask. But it was impossible not to love Sharon. She wore me down with her very Sharon ways, with her Christmas decorations. Does that seem weird? It shouldn't. Sharon was a smart lady. She put out the most magical ornaments from around the world and trays loaded with cookies and candies. And she wore me down with her skills. She taught me to crochet and tried to teach me to cross-stitch. She had so many talents and was always excited to share her knowledge. Before long, I was stumbling into her room after a nightmare and sleeping on the floor beside her bed. As I grew older, we grew closer. We had our moments, of course. She did have to play stepmom to 2 twin teenagers. Sharon was tough, but she was fair, and she was always there. She was there for my high school graduation and when I got my degree. She was there when I went skydiving. She was on the ground, of course, proving again what all who knew her know, that she had more sense than many of us. She was there for weddings and births. She was always there for her children and for her grandchildren. I was looking through my photos to find pictures to share for this event, and I realized, whether by coincidence or by design, Sharon rarely appeared in any of them, but she was present in so many of them just out of frame. Through a very full life, her shadow fell on the edges of photos captured at every event. Birthday parties and graduations, holidays and dinner parties. Her fantastic dishes showed up in pictures more often than she did. Easter treats like egg nest cookies that she would bring to our feasts. birthday cakes, dinner rolls, and desserts. Man, could Sharon cook dessert. Unless she was out of town, Sharon always showed up for our Crazies holiday celebrations. The Crazies is the name for our fantastically non-nuclear family. And Sharon didn't always just show up for our gatherings. She always showed up with the most mouth-watering dishes, hams, turkeys, bread. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Sharon's presence hovered in the background of the photos of her grandchildren, my kids Sydney and Chandler, my brother's daughter Jamie, and her step-grandchildren, Piper and Sabrina, Alex and Sam. Sharon doted on her grandkids. It didn't matter how they became her grandchildren. Once they were there, they were hers. And she was the quintessential grandmother. She knitted them hats to wear for the 4th of July. She baked cookies with them, and without. And if it was without, the cookies were there waiting for her grandkids to come visit. And if they didn't, the cookies were brought to their homes with instructions to let mom and dad have just one. I found photo after photo of the kids dressed up waiting for Sharon to come take them to the symphony or to a play. She bought them season passes from a very early age. Sydney loved her symphony dates with Grandma Sharon. Rain or shine, sickness or health, Sharon would go with Sydney and she would go with her friends to the symphony. I had to go pick Sydney up once because she started vomiting in the car on the way over, but she refused to stay home. Chandler liked going too, although Sharon finally stopped taking him because he vacillated between talking nonstop or sleeping through the shows. But today, both of my children play multiple instruments, and I credit Sharon for instilling in them a love of music. Yes, Sharon always showed up, even if you could never prove it with pictures. She was active in all the kids' activities, brownies, Girl Scouts, and Boy Scouts, music recitals, birthday parties, promotions. I can feel her presence along the edges of every photo from every meaningful event in the children's lives. Photos of Jamie in her fancy dress at her dance recital, Chandler dressed like Johnny Cash after playing guitar before a crowded room. And beyond the meaningful, the everyday, Sharon was there to care for them when they were sick and their parents needed to work, during in-services or when work trips called. She would take them to the church where she volunteered putting together food for children who needed it. She took them with her to help dish up hot lunches to children in Douglas. She took them to the doctors and dentist appointments and to music lessons and karate. She pitched in every time someone needed her. And when the kids became older and no longer needed a minder, she set up dates with them to help Sydney practice her driving or to take Chandler for ice cream. Sharon's passing leaves a huge hole in so many lives because she was such a large presence when she was here. But oddly, I still feel her hovering on the edges, like the lessons she passed on and the good that she did for so many of us have been burned into the atmosphere. I still feel her here. I hear her advice, and I'm so grateful that she was my stepmom and that she was grandma to Sydney and Chandler and Jamie and Piper, Sabrina and Alex and Sam.
From Judy Roberts. My first memory of Sharon was at an ESA sorority meeting at Deborah Roberts-Burt's house in Douglas. She was smiling and knitting through most of the meeting as we chatted about business. She wasn't a member at that time, but had been coming to meetings and socials for quite a while. Eventually, Deborah convinced her that she was one of us and that she needed to join. We all loved Sharon dearly and were very happy when she became an official sister. During her time in ESA, Sharon held multiple offices and rarely ever missed an event or meeting. She never complained, always had a smile, and was ready to help in whatever way she could. Among the many things she participated in, Sharon helped bake and sell pies at the Nugget Mall, worked at the Moose Carnival booth, and did lots of events at the Pioneers' Home. Of course, we all remember her jumping around in the pink Easter Bunny costume, too. Sharon was a person who led by example, and what an excellent example she was. On a personal level, Sharon was a very dear friend and often had lunch with the downtown group at the Fiddlehead restaurant, or she helped us get tickets to one of the amazing Perseverance Theater productions. I loved Sharon dearly and cannot believe that I won't see her on my next visit to Juneau. She's sorely missed, and her beautiful presence will forever hold a special place in my heart.
Hello, my name is Donna Lay. I have known Sharon as long as I have lived in Juneau, which is over 20 years. We first met at church. Things I always will remember about Sharon or that will remind me of Sharon. She loved to knit. She was always knitting something. When in a meeting, when waiting for an activity to start, her hands were always busy. Sharon loved her son and grandkids. Every time I saw her, she would mention one of them or both of them, and she would light up with excitement. Twice, she survived breast cancer. She was a survivor. She gave me such inspirations for weathering trials and coming through strong with a great attitude on the other side. Dogs were important to Sharon. She always had a few. When our dogs had passed away, she would send us a card of sympathy. She knew what it was like to love a dog. Serving others was who Sharon was. She was involved in volunteering for AARP and tax services so many years I lost count. School lunch for kids in Juneau will never be the same. Sharon spearheaded the backpack program for kids who needed weekend and holiday lunches. I was privileged to work on several projects with Sharon for the backpack program. She cooked and coordinated for summer lunches, bought groceries year-round for lunches, and picked up items at the food bank. Sharon was tireless, always doing something for someone else. We enjoyed many Saturdays walking the airport bike trail with our dogs. About once a month for a lot of years, we would meet early on a Saturday morning and walk our dogs. She said hi to so many people on the trail, I almost believe she knew everyone in Juneau and their dog, and maybe she did. Sharon, thank you for your legacy. I miss you. Love, Donna.
A note from Eleanor Oidna. I've read and heard what has been said about Sharon's life in this video, and in our 16 years of friendship, I felt that it captured her life, her passions, her gifts, and her spirit so well. I came to know Sharon when she hired me to work for her at the state. Although we didn't actually work together, she included me in some of her volunteer work, and like everyone that grew to know her, we too became great friends. In 2005, Sharon retired from the state, and at that same time, she adopted a puppy, Moxie, to join what her veterinarian called the Thundering Herd, when each year Sharon took the whole crew in for their vaccines. I adopted Moxie's brother Sparge, and he often joined his friends at Sharon's too. In fact, Sparge, when Sharon visited, would try to go home with her. There were never too many animals as far as Sharon was concerned, and they loved being around her. Sharon and I also had children the same age, and another one of my children lived in Anchorage for a time and befriended her mother. All of these things made my husband Arnie, Sharon, and I a family. Arnie was spoiled year-round with homemade rhubarb jam from Sharon's kitchen, and the three of us shared many a meal together and spent hours in conversation about everything. And like family does, we watched out for one another. When Sparge died last year, Sharon said that pets wait for their people at the Rainbow Bridge. I imagine all of the creatures Sharon rescued in her lifetime on Earth and know that Sparge is among them. She was his family too. Sharon was educated, well-read, and well-traveled, and constantly sharing new things she was learning and telling stories of places, people, and experiences she had had throughout her life. She had an incredible memory. My life in Juneau started with Sharon and existed with Sharon in it. To say I will miss her is an understatement, but she is in my heart and in my mind in the things I do day to day. I want to close with something that I remember in our last call and that I believe Sharon has said to many of us, and what she would say to her future grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I love you, Sharon. And she would say, I love you too, sweetie.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Moore. I was Aunt Sharon's favorite niece, and consequently I was her only niece. But I would like to share just a couple stories about my wonderful Aunt Sharon today and her giving heart. I'm an elementary school teacher, and Aunt Sharon was always asking me about my students and how they were, because I work in a very low-income area. Well, a few years ago when I was talking to Aunt Sharon about my students, I mentioned that many of them didn't have proper clothing for wintertime. Well, as soon as Aunt Sharon heard that, she asked me how many students I had, asked for about, what their favorite colors were, and she went out and bought yarn, and she knitted every single student their own hat. And these weren't just any other hat. They were Sharon hats. And if you have a Sharon hat, you know that they will cover your ears, your forehead, your back of your neck. They were exquisite. Well, my students were so overwhelmed that they ended up writing Aunt Sharon and sending her videos and notes, and they adopted her as their Aunt Sharon. Because not only do a lot of my students come from low economic status, but they also come from broken homes where their families are separated or they don't have family. So my class adopted my Aunt Sharon as their Aunt Sharon as well. Well, then the following year, I had the same class. I was able to loop with them, and Sharon knitted them all mittens that matched their hats. And of course, with the leftover yarn, Aunt Sharon knitted my new baby Leo, knitted him a beautiful yarn blanket, and she had used all of the extra yarn that was left over from the mittens and the hats. So that was just another gift that she was able to give to me. Then last year, my librarian was diagnosed with breast cancer. And when I was talking to Aunt Sharon about my beloved librarian, the first thing Aunt Sharon asked was, what does she need? She offered books and other resources to my librarian, but she also wanted to know what her favorite color was. And a couple weeks later, Aunt Sharon had mailed me a beautifully knit blue hat. My librarian loved this hat so much, she wore it every single day. And unfortunately, my librarian has now passed of breast cancer, but her last school picture that she took, she is proudly wearing the hat that Aunt Sharon had knitted her. Aunt Sharon, as you all know, was an incredibly special woman, and thankfully she has left her mark on this world, and she will never be forgotten.
A message from Jillian Hayes. Here is a picture of my beautiful granddaughter, Evelyn Poppy Hayes. I crocheted the blanket that she is happily modeling thanks to the loving time and care from Sharon. She taught me how to crochet and walked me through making it. You see, I had some yarn and a pattern and the desire, but I had no idea how to make it. Sharon always had a bag with yarn and knitting needles or a crochet hook in her hand, so I figured she could help me, and of course she did. I always wondered if she knew what she was getting into. Anyway, over the course of 5 months, I made that beautiful blanket. We would meet before or after the ladies' lunches, and then many times when I got stuck, we would meet again at a coffee shop so she could get me going again, or fix my boo-boo. While I knew Sharon years ago when Kenny and my son were in middle school together, we never really had the chance to just visit on our own. So I'm so very thankful that I had that special time with her and experienced her amazing patience. A message from Judith Hendrickson. I have some very wonderful memories of Sharon. My first time meeting the ESA ladies was at Margie Mackey's house. It was a tea party and we all had to wear hats. Everyone was so incredibly nice and it was so welcoming. I immediately joined the sorority. We had the best time, and Sharon always volunteered for everything. We were so busy. We sold hot dogs and ran outdoor game booths and sold Thanksgiving pies and took Santa Claus pictures, and Sharon even dressed up as Santa a time or two. Sharon Lowe was always the Easter Bunny, and what a wonderful Easter Bunny she was. As an ESA member, she donated peanut butter and oatmeal to Juneau Elementary School. She made cookies for the Juneau Pioneer Home. We spent several years doing the Relay for Life. Sharon was so very, very proud of her family. She spoke so proudly of her son Kenny and of Jean and John. Sharon loved everybody. Sharon had a special place in her heart for children. She adored children. And Sharon always kept so very busy. She would help out the needy. She was a fantastic knitter and would knit school children hats. She would donate toiletries and bras to low-income teen girls. Sharon wrote the grant for Feeding Juneau's Future. Sharon enjoyed shopping for the 400 poor hungry children so they may have breakfast and lunch on the weekends. The backpack program. Sharon also shopped and cooked for the summer food program. Sharon Lowe was a very, very dear friend. During the winter months, we would love going out to eat at the Douglas Cafe and then seeing a play at Perseverance Theater. We shared a birthday month in February, and a handful of us would celebrate each other's birthdays at the TK McGuire's. It was my son William Muldoon, who considers Kenny one of his best friends, who called me to tell me of Sharon's passing. We both wept. My son loved Sharon Lowe so much. Sharon Lowe was so very, very brave. She fought cancer twice. Her first bout with cancer, she didn't even stop working. She went to work in Anchorage and got her radiation treatments after work. Her second time with cancer, Sharon had a unilateral mastectomy in Seattle, and she emailed her girlfriends she was in happy spirits and having a good time with Kenny. To Sharon, Kenny hung the moon. To me, Sharon Lowe hung the moon. She was sweet, generous, kind, amazing, and I loved her so. Dear Sharon, I remember first meeting at the Anchorage, Alaska Public Employees Association in May of 1983. There were 4 of us sitting at the luncheon table, and you sat across from me. I think we became friends almost from the moment we looked at each other. Could be we were kindred spirits, and the connection was instant. We talked about so many subjects that afternoon. Then in January of 1984, I accepted a job in Juneau with the newly created Department of Labor. My first Juneau home was your basement apartment. This move cemented our friendship as I was able to see you every day. Kenny was only a few months old, and he and I became backseat friends on our drive to work until my 280Z arrived from Fairbanks. I wasn't there for his birth, but I did get to watch him grow into the man he is today, and I do feel like I am his Aunt Deb. In Juneau, we did so many things together. You loved to give, and I accepted and hopefully gave back as much as you gave me. During those years, we shared numerous lunches at the Fiddlehead and quick lunch walks downtown. We kept each other informed of what our children and then my grandchildren were doing. We shared in ESA Activates for many years. Remember that crazy snow drive from Fairbanks to Haines after an ESA convention? To keep us both calm during that icy drive, you read out loud a P.D. James mystery. I don't remember the name of the book, but your balanced, calm reading kept us both steady as I maneuvered the ice and snow-covered Alcan Highway. We also had 2 flat tires on that trip. I remember the 1984 Thanksgiving storm with that unbelievable wind and rain. The turkey was in the oven and just starting to give off that aroma of celebration. Then the lights went out, but we improvised the best we could. Ken started the barbecue, and the turkey took forever, but a good meal and candlelight was had. We seemed so safe together. It didn't matter what Mother Nature brought that day. We had our laughter and friendship to keep us warm. How many times we sat and knitted together, shared lunches together, traveled the icy roads of life together, and we always maintained that quiet friendship that just stayed positive. However, leaving Juneau in 2003 was the hardest on our friendship. We knew that the separation would be difficult, but that distance was only in miles. On every visit I made to Juneau, we would hug, laugh, and continue like I had never left. Then in 2014, I moved back to the Seattle area. Now it was your turn to visit me. Once again, we explored and shopped in Bainbridge, Shelton, Allen, and Seattle. We had sleepovers at my place and Karen's. We celebrated your mom's birthdays and visits with Kenny. The last 5 years were wonderful as we explored yarn shops, antique shops, and the Seattle public market. Sharon, I was hoping that our adventures would continue for many years. However, life is not always the way we plan. You left me sooner than I wanted, but you are still in my heart and memories. Your friendship was a gift that I will continue to cherish, and I thank you every day for being my friend these last 37 years. Your legacy will continue to be one of giving, love, and compassion. Your strength was not physical, it was in your unwavering love of children and animals. Your intelligence was beyond others, but you never flaunted, only taught others in a very quiet, steady voice. You are missed, my dear, beautiful friend. Love, Deborah Roberts-Burt. A message from Vivian Bearden. I am honored to have had Sharon as a friend. We shared many events around Juneau together, symphonies, plays, gallery walks, museums, lectures, and more. With her busy volunteer work, it was amazing she had time for such a friendship. It was as if she invented time, not to forget all her cooking and baking she shared. What a loss her death has made for so many of us. A message from Shelley Travis. I have known and loved Sharon for 40 years. I'm bawling as I write this. Her heart was so beautiful and good. When my niece was diagnosed with brain cancer, Sharon jumped into donating her beautiful hats for Jessica. She brought a smile to all of us at Little Mermaid every time she walked through those doors. Her love for her family was huge. She beamed speaking of them, always making something wonderful for each and every one of them. I'm beyond blessed to have been able to call her friend for so many joyous years. With heartfelt thanks, Shelley Travis.
Hi, this is an ode to our dear friend, Sharon. A friend to me, she was my best friend's neighbor. She was a bright light shining. Her cats, her dogs, her backyard, her apple tree, she was she. But so much did she do. Sharon possessed help as a verb. She was a doer. She thoughtfully served. She fed the hungry. She created ways to feed our students. I gave out the food. I saw her work feed others. She did this. To me, Sharon was simply the face of Jesus. Like him, she fed the hungry. She was cheerful and kind. And Sharon did the shopping, long hours, putting all that work together. And with her being gone, it has been a challenge to find ways. We wish we knew her ways. So it's hard. She fed many, 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 many. She found a way in our world of today. To me, Sharon was a saint. She is an inspiration to me. I think of how she just did the work. From knitting lunches that created forever bonds, strong, caring friendships, to providing tax help with the AARP and me. She served in retirement. She made our community here in Juneau stronger, healthier, and more full. Sharon was my friend, and I saw her works as holy. She walked the walk and did the work. And I'm under-resourced, but I have goals, Sharon goals, to stay involved, to serve, to feed the hungry. So Sharon, may your soul rest in peace, and let us share your peace together. And we remember your legacy, Sharon, your works of mercy. You were blessed, and you are an inspiration to me, Sharon. May you rest in peace. Amen.